Greetings, distinguished followers, Chosen Chimp here, and welcome to my review of Wishworld, the penultimate episode of the brand new series of Doctor Who. I hope you are all doing well. Just to let you know, this review will contain spoilers, so if you haven't watched it and you want to watch it, then don't watch this. But then go and watch it and then come back and watch this so we can all talk about it together over a steaming pot of Bovril. So it's London 2025 and John Smith is happily married to a woman. They have a beautiful baby girl together and life is just swell. Why not switch on the TV and watch Uncle Conrad tell us one of his stories? But whatever you do, you better not have any doubts. Ooh. And that's the plot. Okay, so here we go. We are in the end game of this series. For all intents and purposes, just summarising it very briefly, this series was on a 5-episode winning streak, and then last week's episode, the Interstellar Song Contest, dropped whilst I had my own reservations about that episode. Alongside of that, other parts of the fandom were having a much stronger, much more potent critical response to that episode, which was extremely valid in my opinion, and I would actually like to make a separate video going into a bit more detail talking about that, a bit of sideline Chosen Chimp content that I'm hoping to drop real soon, maybe over the next couple of days, we'll see. In the meantime, back to this episode. So it is the Wishworld, it is the end game, and I'm thinking to myself, after the noteworthy ride that this series has been, I am rooting for a bit of a spectacle in this finale, and the kind of finale I'm gunning for really is just a sort of feast for the senses, you know. I just kind of want an almost nads to the wall onslaught of insanity, which is kind of selfish because that's kind of personally what I like about Doctor Who. You know, I loved it in Matt Smith's second series, in the final episode when the whole of reality got squashed together and there were pyramids and trains and Winston Churchill was moaning about Cleopatra and stuff like that. That's the kind of thing I love personally, and I was rooting for that in this finale, so much to the point that I was almost willing, and this probably makes me a bit of a crap critic, I was almost willing to make a bit of a concession on the well, not so much the integrity of the writing, but I was prepared to forgive maybe a couple of minor plot holes here and there, just so long as I can feel it, just so long as I get given an experience that I can feast on visually and audibly, and, well, I guess, be careful what you wish for to an extent. I'm having one of those things again that I say in these reviews with a bit more frequency than I used to, and that is I'm still just a bit lost as to what to make of this episode, really, but I will do my best to run through it and give a sort of objective critique of it. So last week the TARDIS blew up. The whole of planet Earth had been erased from future history, and Miss Flood was revealed to be the Rani, or as it turned out, 2 Ranis in fact, and Susan was coming back as well. We saw that, so naturally my immediate thoughts when switching off that episode was, holy gosh, I do wonder what is happening in Bavaria 1863. And that is where the story begins. The Rani, she's riding on a horse through a forest to a small house where a woman has given birth to her 7th son from the father of a 7th son, which bears some kind of significance. The Rani has magic powers. She turns the dad into a load of petals and turns the children into ducks, turns the mum into a load of petals. I do apologise for getting that wrong. She actually turns the dad into an owl and takes the baby. Here we go. Alright, there's the plot. Like we didn't have enough to try and consider for this two-part finale. But here we go, it's London 2025, and Conrad Clark, having been rescued from prison by who we now understand is the Rani, is running the show. He has created a sort of dystopian, almost Orwellian, if you like, society where it is just swell and great if you are a member of the privileged majority. So clean and crisp and shallow and tacky, and the kind of shallow utopic vision that Conrad would typically generate if we had the power to, and we know this about him having seen him in Lucky Day, that if you are in a minority, most notably if you are disabled, for example, then you will be simply ignored. It's got the Doctor, it's got Belinda, for some reason Poppy from the Space Babies is there, and the whole of Unit 2. I'd love to have seen the part when the two Ranis got together and went, we'll do Unit first because that's the easy part. Unbelievable, right? So Kate Lethbridge is seemingly the manager of the Unified National Insurance Team. The unit headquarters is now a bureaucratic office with that kind of 1950s vibe aesthetics, basically like the TVA off Loki, if you right. And yes, the concept at the beginning is also a bit, kind of slightly, like WandaVision, if you are watching Doctor Who for the first time through the eyes of someone who has watched a few Marvel series over the past few years. Those are the two Marvel series that you're probably going to draw from when you watch this one. Ibrahim is cussing John Smith momentarily because John Smith had the audacity to call a man beautiful when he himself is a man. Straight away we get the a feeling for the vanilla flavour of this society. It's got unit. Kate Lethbridge is kind of above her station, being a woman who is in a job. She shouldn't really be there either. There's giant skeletons walking around. They sort of look like dinosaur T-Rexes a little bit, except they got tusks sticking out the front, and they are stomping around. People acknowledge their existence like it's no big deal, and there's a kind of floating bone-like structure in the middle of London. Aesthetically, I think this is the bomb. Alright, there is one shot in particular where you see a couple of these skeleton monster dinosaur creatures lazily stomping around in the distance with this ominous citadel-like structure floating in the sky, and I'm looking at that and it just makes me so happy, as with a lot of this Doctor Who series, possibly more so than any other Doctor Who series ever in history, credit where it's due. Some of the visuals and some of the compositions and shots are just bloody gorgeous, alright? And when you consider moments like that, this episode is certainly no exception. It's got Mel too. She's a neighbour. She is alone without kids, and she's not married, and she will sit there in quiet contemplation, and she will jolly well like it. Her words, not mine. The plot comes through the perspective of two characters. One is Ruby Sunday, who is almost won over by the spell of our Orwellian style Conrad Clark, but not quite. And also from the perspective of the two Ranis while they cook up their wicked scheme and laugh at the fickle nature of humanity for falling head over heels right under this spell. So Ruby Sunday allies herself with Shirley Bingham, who is on the fringe of society. She is not as cleanly dressed as everybody else. She has been ignored when she asks for money because society rejects disabled people. And I like the fact that the two-dimensional nature of this society means that the person creating it doesn't have any real understanding of the needs of disabled people. Whilst he doesn't particularly wish that they were, not in existence, he refutes the reality of their daily struggles to the point when they don't have to take medication for their physical ailments, because that is not a facet of being disabled, of having a disability, that people like Conrad have the ability to comprehend. It's just not something that a shallow right-wing bigot like Conrad can put inside his mind. Basically, Conrad has kind of forgotten to include her and a community of other disabled people in his general pocket of hypnosis, if you like. So Ruby Sunday collaborates with Shirley Bingham and her group of friends to try and break out of this weird thing that is happening to the world. So they are essentially the only people who have the ability to stop what's going on, because the Doctor and Belinda are bloody useless throughout this entire story. I'm aware that it is sort of the point, but there is something I find deeply frustrating about that, and I will get to that in a second. So yeah, that's kind of the bread and butter of the story, really. Shirley and Ruby Sunday are trying to cook a scheme to find out what is going on. One of her friends, Shirley's friends, has a theory that the bones of these moving creatures and the bones that construct this big citadel are lost relics that have bled through another reality from a forgotten world. Which, again, I think is a cool concept, and the only explanation for these creatures that you get in this story. I do hope that we will find out more of where these things came from in the reality war. So the Rani, or the two Ranis, have cooked up a very elaborate and, in my opinion, a bit of a harebrained scheme. It's completely nonsensical. It's absolutely bonkers, and I'm still trying to work out whether that's a good thing or if it's just part of the gimmick of the Rani being this crazy witch-like villain. So they have taken the Doctor's Vindicator and they have fashioned it to a clock that ticks down towards midnight, where the date of May the 24th will transpire, and that is when their plan to find the one who is lost will come underway. And they are fueling this device through people's doubt. It seems that what has happened here is that they have created a reality that they are deliberately then going to destroy, because that will create cracks and fissures in the manifolds of reality itself, which provides the opportunity for the one who was lost to be released. So the more that people have doubts, the more it is good for the plan that they are trying to hatch. Whereas for the people down on the surface, having any kind of doubts or questioning anything around them is deemed an instant crime, which is very evocative of the classics, isn't it? It's George Orwell's 1984. It's Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, both of which are excellent books. So the Doctor and Belinda has doubts, and Mrs. Flood's police team swoop right in and arrest the Doctor for having doubts, and also arrest Belinda for being in proximity for somebody who is having doubts. I'm still trying to grasp how well it works storytelling terms, where doubts are actually considered a crime, yet they benefit the people at the top. In the run-up to this, the Doctor sees Susan briefly on the TV, and he also sees Rogue. Rogue is back. He's surrounded in flames. He claims that he's in hell. That he's burning in hell. We don't get much clarity on why that happens. I don't know if I missed something there. Perhaps this is supposed to be representative of some kind of televangelist bollocks of what should happen to gay people. But he seems okay, considering he's basically surrounded by fire. He's alright. He can be nice and jolly and sarky about it. So again, hopefully they explain that. The Doctor doesn't have a real sense of recognition of him at first, but it helps to trigger his doubt, and then he gets taken with Belinda to the Citadel, where the Rani explains to him who she is and what is going on. And this is where I think the mystery and the apparent integrity of this episode kind of starts to fall apart to me. You see, building up to this, I really loved this concept. I really enjoyed the ride. I was so happy that it had just gone this nuts and had created this false reset where everybody's under a spell. It's a classic trope. It's been done in many a TV show before, and I'm a sucker for it, because even though you knew that you had a certain level of knowledge going in as to how and why this was happening, you were still more or less on the same level playing field as the characters in terms of knowledge. You had to catch up in real time in the same way the characters do. However, the thing I find really extremely unrewarding about this process is that, I mean, Belinda as well, but I'll just put Belinda to one side and talk specifically about the Doctor here, is the Doctor does nothing, okay? He does absolutely nothing to break out of this. He is the complete and utter sucker throughout all of this. He is played like a violin from start right to the end. And yes, I acknowledge that is the whole point of the story, because the Rani, she needs to create this plan without interference through her most powerful foe, aka the Doctor. She has to put the Doctor into a trap, because with the Doctor gone, there is nobody else on planet Earth like the Doctor. Like, yeah, I didn't see it either. Nobody like the Doctor who is on this planet that can stop her plans. So she has maneuvered the Doctor into a position where he is to realise and get his memories back all too late, just as he is falling into a big pit of exploding reality. So he effectively did nothing throughout this entire episode, and I get it, it's part 1 of 2. The clever stuff, the things that he will do to save reality is all going to come in the next episode. I understand that and I acknowledge that. So I think it works to a degree, but at the same time I find it quite frustrating, because what I like about stories when people are under a spell is watching the characters slowly learn and evolve and hit that point where they just snap and break out of it and turn the prison in on itself. Surely that is the most rewarding element to the whole nothing around you is real trope. But that doesn't happen this time. And the Doctor is played like a fool. And fair play to the Rani for having had the ability to make all of this happen and to manoeuvre the Doctor in such a way that he only realises all too late. She basically runs the show here. She is the master of her own story. She faces no adversity and no adversary at all. In this, Ruby and Shirley's plans haven't manifested yet, I don't think. Nothing, basically. So really, I think I'm just going to have to wait until the Reality Wars drops and then go back to this retrospectively, because right now I really don't know what to make of this spectacle. I'm still struggling to figure out whether this whole thing works or not. And I'm not entirely sure that it does, because I'm thinking back to some of the golden moments that we had in this series and some of the clarity that episodes such as The Well and Lucky Day and The Story in the Engine gave us. And obviously this episode doesn't match, but then again, isn't that what I wanted? Didn't I want this finale just to be a kind of, everything but the kitchen sink affair where you just feel the visuals kind of rushing at you and just you hit the roller coaster ride of mystery and excitement and explosions and the frills and the spills organically mixed in with a bit of intense drama? And it's sort of that and it's sort of not. So the baby does the giggle, so this leads into the Pantheon Gods, which I think the newest member of which is supposed to be Omega, I think. And there you go, it's an Omega thing. The one who was lost, they're bringing back Omega. Another treat for old school fans, another thing that is lost on new fans. If you come at this series through fresh eyes, which is what Russell T Davies supposedly invited you to do, you have got another moment where you're just going to sit there and go, who? And even for fans of old school Doctor Who, these revelations are kind of getting a little bit repetitive. So the Rani was revealed last week, and the impact was a little bit dull because Mrs. Flood was building herself up to be a character that was something a little bit more meta and a little bit more interesting than just fresh paint on an old villain. And now, another episode down the line, it's Omega, and it goes back to the same old twist. I know who Omega is. I remember the Three Doctors. I remember Omega taking his helmet off and he didn't have a head and he had a noisy, nervous breakdown. I remember Arc of Infinity, which I only watched recently, by the way, when he is desperately escaping for his own survival and he turns himself into the Doctor, and the Doctor is chasing him through the streets with such ferocity that he barely stops to stop the poor lady whose shopping he knocks over onto the street. Possibly the Doctor's darkest moment there, in my personal opinion. I remember all of that, and yet I still don't know what this revelation is doing for me, the fact that Omega has returned. I don't know if he's supposed to be a Pantheon god or not. Conrad Clark says that he is the original creator of the Time Lords, which, yeah, I guess they've swiped the whole Tectean thing from the Timeless Child away. Have they? I don't know. It's all jumbled. That whole history of Gallifrey has gone kaput anyway, so I'm more inclined just to say, who cares about that? I was looking forward to seeing Maestro again, and maybe Sutekh, maybe Mr. Ring-a-Ding, maybe the Mara, and we could see Tegan again. Maybe some of the stuff that has been more organically intertwined into this new series. Omega was just like, just what's with all the Time Lord stuff all of a sudden? We've already got the Pantheon God thing and that's enough. It's confusing and overstuffed enough as it is, right? So I'm really not sure how that's going to pan out. Again, it's Omega, who we don't even see, and it's like the Sutekh thing again, but slightly less interesting. The world plummets into a chasm of shattered reality. London is sinking, it's full of cracks and it's sinking, except now the cracks are purple, because when that happened in the Star Beast, the cracks were orange. Now the cracks are purple, reality is collapsing, the world is ending, the Doctor remembers, last minute, all too late, the Rani explodes the bit of the balcony that he's on, he sinks in and he says, "Poppy is my daughter." Do you know what that means? No. I expect we'll find out. The final episode, The Reality War, is 1 hour and 6 minutes, I think. Enough time to tell a good story, but will they? The book had I.M. Foreman as the author, okay? Susan Foreman was Susan's Earth name back in An Unearthly Child. I wonder what the I.M. stands for. Maybe that is strikingly obvious. Maybe you have looked at a Reddit page already and figured out what that I and M stands for. If you have, please drop it in the comments and tell me, and I will reply telling you whether or not I've already discovered that myself, or maybe I remembered. I don't know. But that does tie into the whole Susan thing, and maybe the power of the Doctor's story is the thing that will break the spell ultimately. I have no flipping idea what is going to happen in the Reality War, and until then I honestly can't tell you, this close to watching the episode, whether or not the Reality War is in fact a good, substantial, solid, well-written Doctor Who story. It's definitely slightly overloaded, I think. It's definitely crammed with more concept than surely it needs, and the revelation of Omega is definitely an anticlimax to a degree, because the fandom already predicted it the same way they predicted the Rani, same way that they predicted Sutekh, and it would have been good if Russell T Davies had put this into consideration and maybe used this as a red herring to reveal something that we weren't expecting, which was what was good about episodes such as Lucky Day, when they dropped twists that we didn't see coming. And this is the disadvantage, I think, of writing the entire beginning to end story so early on in the timeline of producing this particular era of Doctor Who. As far as we are aware, The Doctor was writing these plot points way back. Russell T Davies was writing these points way back in 2023, so he had no knowledge of the fact that people were going to figure out the Sutekh twist and all the rest, and that people were going to figure out the Rani, and people were going to go, the unholy trinity, but the Rani's only one person, so there must still be a third person. It's probably going to be Omega. So the way that this narrative was constructed is questionable in and of itself. Maybe he should have rolled with the times a bit more and done this a bit more in real time, if that is indeed possible. But then again, I suppose we wouldn't have had the rapid delivery of Doctor Who that we have had over the past couple of years. But seeing as that's been derailed and we won't get another series until 2027 anyway, then maybe that was all for naught. I just don't know. This confuses me, but I enjoy the ride to a degree. I love the visuals, and if you want to just switch off from all of that and just forget the intricacies of the plot and the storytelling, which you are perfectly entitled to do, this is a bit of fun. It is wild, it's silly, it's absolutely absurd in a good way, and there is a lot about this that you can just sit back and enjoy. And I did, and I will again, and I'm looking forward to watching it again. But whether it's a really good quality episode of Doctor Who, I just don't know yet, and I won't know until I watch the Reality War next week. And that is where I'm going to leave this review, my humble viewers. I'm going to leave it hovering in the void until we get to the end of next week's episode. And I'd like to think that most of you people watching this are in the same boat, okay? It's a cliffhanger. This is not an entity unto its own. We've just got to wait and see where it goes from here. So that is my review. I'll see you next week for the Reality War. I hope it's a belter. I really hope this series ends on a high, because the majority of it so far has been great. I think pound for pound, it's been better than last season's season. And so, yeah, hope it ends on a banger, and I will see you there. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to check me out on social media, then visit me on Blue Sky at thechosenchimp.bsky.social. You can also visit my Patreon at patreon.com/chosenchimp, where you can become a distinguished follower for just £1 a month. If you do that, you can request your Doctor Who topic for review, and I will also mention your name in this video. I am currently uploading short form versions of all of my long form reviews for this series, the rest of which I will be dropping over next week in between now and the final episode. And I'm also going to be dropping those on TikTok too, for all of you people who like a bit of TikTok. And most importantly, like, share and subscribe this video on YouTube. If you liked this video and you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much. It means a lot. I hope you are all doing well, and I will see you very, very soon. For the love of Pete and his world, please do have a good one.